Did you know there are plants that can live their entire lives without ever touching the ground? And get this, some of them actually give us our favorite ice cream flavor. Welcome to the magical world of orchids. These aren't just any flowers you see in a pot. They're master survivors, engineering marvels of the plant kingdom. Think about it for a second. There are over 25,000 different kinds of orchids, which is actually more than double the number of bird species on Earth. They've figured out how to live in almost every environment you can imagine, from steamy jungles to chilly mountaintops, on every single continent except for Antarctica. They are the ultimate adventurers, and honestly, their survival strategies are absolutely genius. Some have roots that act like super absorbent sponges, while others have developed these intricate traps to trick insects into pollinating them. They've even figured out how to make their own food storage tanks to get through the dry season. But here's the best part. One special type of orchid gives us vanilla. That's right, the delicious flavor in your ice cream, cookies, and cakes comes from the seed pod of a vanilla orchid. So next time you're enjoying a sweet treat, you can thank one of these incredible plants. Today, we're going on an epic journey to uncover the secrets of these amazing plants. And this isn't just me talking. We're diving into the science backed by the brilliant minds at the University of Florida. Their research has helped us understand these complex plants, and we're going to use it to explore the three main types of orchids. By the end of this video, you'll be an orchid expert, ready to spot them in the wild, understand their superpowers, and maybe even grow one yourself. So grab your explorer's hat and let's get started. Alright, first up are the ultimate masters of living life on the edge. I'm talking about epiphytic orchids. The word epiphyte sounds super scientific, but it just means a plant that grows on another plant like a tree without being a parasite. They're not stealing nutrients, they're just using the tree as a high-rise apartment to get closer to the sun and away from the crowded forest floor. They are the original tree huggers, and their engineering is mind-blowing. Imagine you're a tiny orchid seed, as small as a speck of dust, floating on the wind through a dense rainforest. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to find the perfect home. You can't land on the dark, damp ground. You need sunlight. So you drift until you find a nice, sturdy tree branch with just the right amount of moss and bark to cling to. This is where the adventure for an epiphytic orchid truly begins. Once they land, these orchids get to work deploying their secret weapon, their roots. These are not your everyday dig-in-the-dirt kind of roots. Oh no, these are specialized high-tech clinging devices. They snake their way over the bark, gripping on like tiny green rock climbers' hands. Their main job is to anchor the plant securely, so even in a wild storm or strong wind, our orchid apartment stays put, high above the ground. But these roots have another superpower. They're covered in a special paper-like tissue called velamen. You can think of velamen as a super sponge. When it rains, this layer instantly soaks up water and nutrients running down the tree bark. It's like having a built-in water collection system that activates the second it gets wet. This is crucial because, remember, these orchids have no soil to draw moisture from. They have to catch it as it falls. And if being a super sponge wasn't cool enough, some epiphytic orchid roots can also perform photosynthesis. You heard me right. Most plants use their leaves to turn sunlight into energy, but some of these orchids, like the famous ghost orchid, have roots packed with chlorophyll. This allows them to make their own food, meaning the roots are not just for support and drinking, they're also a solar-powered kitchen. How efficient is that? Now, living in a tree means you can't always count on a rain shower. So, what do you do during a dry spell? Epiphytic orchids have solved this problem with built-in water storage tanks. Many of them, like the Cattleya or Dendrobium orchids, have swollen, stem-like structures at the base of their leaves called pseudobulbs. These are like a camel's hump, storing water and nutrients to keep the plant hydrated and fed until the next rainfall. And their leaves are also part of this clever water-saving system. Many epiphytic orchids have thick, waxy, succulent-like leaves. This waxy coating helps prevent water from evaporating in the sun and wind. It's like the plant is wearing a tiny, waterproof jacket all the time. Every single part of the plant is engineered for survival in its high-rise home. It's a masterclass in living with less. You've probably seen some of these amazing tree huggers without even realizing it. The most popular houseplant orchid, the Phalaenopsis or moth orchid, is an epiphyte. So are the stunningly beautiful Cattleya orchids, often called corsage orchids, and the elegant Vanda orchids, which are famous for their vibrant colors and large aerial root systems that hang down like a curtain. Then there's the Oncidium orchid, nicknamed the Dancing Lady because its flowers look like tiny dancers in flowing yellow gowns. And yes, our friend the vanilla orchid often starts its life as an epiphyte before sending down roots to the ground, using the tree for support as it climbs towards the sunlight. These are the celebrities of the orchid world. But you don't have to travel to a faraway jungle to see these. Right here in the United States, Florida has its own native epiphytic superstars. There's the incredible spider orchid, whose spidery flowers hang delicately from tree branches. And the rare and mysterious ghost orchid, which has no leaves at all and appears as a ghostly white flower floating in the swampy air, held up only by its photosynthetic roots. There's also the beautiful Florida butterfly orchid, which fills the air with a lovely fragrance at night. These native species are perfectly adapted to the Florida climate, clinging to cypress and oak trees in swamps and forests. They are a precious part of our natural heritage, showing us that this incredible survival strategy is at work right in our own backyards. So, let's try a little thought experiment. Close your eyes and imagine you are that tiny, dust-like orchid seed. You're floating on a warm breeze. Below you is the forest. You see dark spots, which are the ground, and you see bright sunny spots on the branches of big, strong trees. Where are you going to land? You need a place with good grip, some sunlight, and a chance to catch the rain. Are you going to aim for that big fork in the branch over there? It looks like some moss has already collected, which would make a great nursery for you to start growing. Or maybe that rough piece of bark a little higher up, where you'll get more sun. The choices you make in these first few moments will determine your entire life. It's a high-stakes game of landing in the perfect spot. That's the life of an epiphytic orchid. It's a constant balancing act between clinging on for dear life and reaching for the sky. They are a testament to how creative nature can be, turning a simple tree branch into a thriving ecosystem. They've engineered a way to live in the air, proving that you don't need to have your roots in the ground to be strong and flourish. Okay, so we've seen the orchids that live their whole lives in the trees. But what if you want the best of both worlds? What if you want the stability of the ground, but also want to reach for that glorious sunshine way up high? Well, then you'd be a climbing orchid. These guys are the Tarzans of the plant world, the ultimate vine swingers. Climbing orchids, or scandent orchids as scientists call them, have a different strategy. Instead of landing in a tree from the air, they start their life right on the forest floor, just like a regular plant. They germinate in the soil or the leaf litter, establishing a solid root system on the ground. This gives them a reliable source of water and nutrients right from the get-go. But they don't stay there for long. Their goal is the canopy. The forest floor can be a dark and competitive place, with lots of other plants fighting for the same limited sunlight. So, climbing orchids have evolved to go up. They produce long, flexible, vine-like stems that are built for one purpose: to climb. These stems can grow incredibly long, sometimes over 100 feet, which is taller than a 10-story building. To achieve this amazing feat, they have a two-part root system. They have their terrestrial roots in the ground, soaking up moisture and anchoring them. But as their stem grows upwards, it sends out short, tough, wiry roots all along its length. These are their climbing hooks. These roots dig into the bark of trees, acting like little grappling hooks that hold the vine securely against the trunk. So let's try a little experiment to see how this works. Stand up for a second. Okay, now imagine your feet are the terrestrial roots, firmly planted on the ground. Now start reaching up with your hands, pretending you're the climbing stem. As you reach, imagine your fingers are the clinging roots. Find a wall or a door frame and press your fingers against it. That's exactly how a climbing orchid pulls itself up, inch by inch. This strategy allows them to use trees purely as a ladder. They're not living on the tree like an epiphyte. They're just using it for support to get to the top. This is a super efficient way to get what they need. They have the security of the ground and the reward of the sun. It's a brilliant compromise that has allowed these orchids to thrive in dense, competitive forests. One of the most famous examples of a climbing orchid is, once again, our friend the vanilla orchid. While some vanilla species can start as epiphytes, the one that gives us our vanilla beans, Vanilla planifolia, is a classic climber. It starts on the ground and then scrambles its way up trees, using them as a scaffold to reach the sunny canopy where it can produce its beautiful flowers. These flowers then need to be pollinated to produce the long seed pods that we know as vanilla beans. The fact that this flavor comes from such an adventurous, high-climbing plant makes it even cooler, don't you think? It's not just a boring bean, it's the fruit of a death-defying vine swinger that raced to the top of the forest. Another great example is the genus Epidendrum. Many species in this group are climbers. They are often called reed stem epidendrums because their stems look like thin reeds of bamboo. They can form huge, tangled masses as they climb up trees, rocks, and even buildings, producing bright clusters of star-shaped flowers at the top. They are incredibly tough and resilient. Think about the engineering challenge here. The stem has to be strong enough to support its own weight as it gets longer and longer, but also flexible enough to weave its way around branches and find the best path upwards. It's a constant search for light and support. The plant is actively exploring its environment, making decisions about which way to grow. This climbing habit is a powerful survival tool. If a branch breaks or the tree it's climbing on falls, the orchid isn't necessarily doomed. Because its base is still rooted in the ground, it can often just start climbing up a new support structure. It's a much more resilient system than being a true epiphyte, which is completely dependent on its host tree staying upright. So let's act this out again, but with more detail. Crouch down on the ground. You're a young climbing orchid sprout. Wiggle your toes. Those are your ground roots getting established. Now slowly start to stand up, sending one arm up like a searching vine. That's your main stem. As you rise, use your other hand to cling to an imaginary tree trunk beside you. Keep reaching higher and higher, always anchored by your feet. You're a vine swinger. You're racing other plants to the top. You can feel the sunlight on your leaves, your face as you get higher. This is the life of a climbing orchid. It's a slow-motion race to the top of the world, a quest for light that begins in the darkness of the forest floor. It's a story of ambition and perseverance. These incredible plants show us yet another way that orchids have conquered their environment. They didn't settle for living on the ground or in the air. They built a bridge between the two worlds. They are the connectors, the adventurers, the athletes of the orchid family, always reaching for new heights. We've been up in the trees and we've climbed our way to the canopy, but now it's time to come back down to earth, literally. Let's talk about terrestrial orchids. The word terrestrial is just a fancy way of saying grows in the ground. These are the orchids that live their lives pretty much like most other plants we know, with their roots firmly in the soil. But just because they live on the ground doesn't make them boring. Not at all. Terrestrial orchids have their own set of incredible superpowers and survival tricks that are just as amazing as their high-flying cousins. They have mastered life in the soil, from the tropics to temperate forests, and even in some surprisingly cold climates. One of their key adaptations is what's happening underground. Out of sight, terrestrial orchids have specialized underground storage organs. These can be fleshy roots, tubers, or corms, which are kind of like little potatoes. These structures are packed with energy and water, acting like a built-in survival kit or a packed lunch for the plant. This underground storage is super important because it allows the orchid to go dormant. In places with cold winters or long dry seasons, the orchid can let its leaves and stem die back completely. It disappears from the surface, but it's not dead. It's just sleeping safely underground, living off the food it stored in its tubers. When the weather gets better, it uses that stored energy to send up a new shoot and grow all over again. Let's do a quick activity. Pretend your fist is an orchid tuber buried in the soil. It's winter and it's cold, so keep it clenched tight. Now spring is coming, the sun is out, the rain is falling. Slowly, start to uncurl your fingers and raise them up. Those are the new leaves and flower stalk emerging from the ground, all powered by the energy you stored in your fist. That's dormancy. This group includes some of the most stunning and bizarre orchids in the world. Take the Paphiopedilum, or the lady's slipper orchid. It gets its name from a modified petal called a labellum that's shaped like a pouch or a slipper. This pouch is actually a clever trap. Insects crawl inside looking for nectar, and the only way out is through a narrow passage that forces them to brush past the pollen, ensuring pollination. It's brilliant. Then you have the Cymbidium orchids, which are very popular with growers. They are known for their long, graceful sprays of waxy, colorful flowers that can last for months. Many of them are native to the cool, mountainous regions of Asia and can handle much colder temperatures than their tropical cousins, all thanks to their ability to store energy underground. And how about some of the truly weird ones? The Corallorhiza, or coral root orchids, are fascinating. They live in North American forests and have no leaves and no chlorophyll. They can't make their own food from sunlight. So how do they live? They are mycoheterotrophs, which means they get all their nutrients by tapping into a network of fungi in the soil, which in turn are connected to the roots of surrounding trees. They're plant hackers. And for a bit of drama, look no further than the coryanthes, the bucket orchid. This terrestrial wonder produces a flower that looks like a bucket and drips a watery fluid into it. Bees are attracted to a scent on the flower, but they often slip and fall into the liquid-filled bucket. Just like the lady's slipper, the only way out is through a special tunnel that forces the bee to pollinate the flower. It's a wild, watery escape room for bees. Another beautiful ground dweller is the zygopetalum orchid. These are famous not just for their striking patterned flowers in shades of green, brown, and purple, but also for their incredible, strong, sweet fragrance. A single zygopetalum can fill an entire room with a perfume that smells like a mix of hyacinths and pepper. They prove that ground orchids are masters of attracting pollinators with scent. And just like with the epiphytes, Florida has its own amazing terrestrial orchids. We have the nun's orchid, which has large pleated leaves and beautiful flowers that look a bit like a nun's wimple. There's also the bamboo orchid, which has tall, slender stems like bamboo and produces delicate pink and white flowers. Then there's the Philippine ground orchid, which has become naturalized in Florida. It's a hardy plant that can grow in gardens and along roadsides, producing beautiful purple flowers. These plants show that even in a state famous for its swampy, tree-filled landscapes, there is plenty of room for orchids that prefer to keep their feet on the ground. So, let's try one last activity. Let's pretend to plant our own terrestrial orchid. Find a spot on the floor. First, you have to prepare the soil, making it nice and loose. Now, gently place your imaginary orchid tuber, your fist again, into the soil. Cover it up gently. You need to give it just the right amount of water, not too much and not too little. And you have to make sure it gets some sunlight, but not so much that its leaves get burned. Caring for a terrestrial orchid is a science. It's about understanding what's happening both above and below the ground. These ground dwellers might not be swinging from the trees, but their complex relationships with soil, fungi, and the changing seasons make them some of the most fascinating and resilient plants on Earth. They are the foundation of the orchid world. So we've seen orchids that live in the air, orchids that climb to the sky, and orchids that make their home in the earth. From the high-tech spongy roots of the epiphytes to the ambitious vines of the climbers and the hidden energy-packed tubers of the terrestrials, orchids are true masters of survival. But even these tough plants face challenges. Many wild orchid populations are threatened by habitat loss and illegal collection. This is where we can all become orchid guardians. Many orchids need our help. We can protect them by learning about them, supporting conservation, never taking orchids from the wild and growing them responsibly. By understanding how they live, we can better appreciate how fragile their ecosystems are. Every time you share a cool fact you learned today, you're helping to build awareness. I want to give a huge thank you to the brilliant researchers at the University of Florida, whose work helps us understand and protect these incredible species. I encourage you all to keep exploring the amazing world of orchids. Visit a local botanical garden. Look for native species on a nature walk, but don't touch, or even try growing a beginner-friendly orchid like a phalaenopsis at home. The world of orchids is endlessly fascinating, with thousands of species we didn't even have time to talk about today. Each one has its own unique story, its own set of superpowers, and its own special place on our planet. They remind us that nature is full of genius and wonder. Remember, every orchid is unique and amazing, just like you. Keep learning, keep growing, and help protect our planet's beautiful plants. Thanks for exploring with me today, and I'll see you next time.